Hello, adventure capitalists. I guess that's what I'm going to call you guys now. And welcome to my first fully feature-length video. This video is, I'm sure you've seen from the thumbnail and the title, it's about how to play joke characters. And actually, it's a bit of a response to a video the Dungeon Dudes made a couple weeks back. Actually, I had this video brewing before that video came out, but I was slow. So it's more of a response now, and by response, I mean it's taking what they said and adding a little bit more, adding my own perspective. Now, back to joke characters. For many people, that's their entry point into D&D. They play Rizlo, the Gnome Bard, or Priestotron, the Warforged Cleric. Oftentimes, characters like these, they're played in one-off one-shots, and yes, they can be pretty disruptive, but the limited scope of one session makes them slightly bearable, if not a little bit annoying. But that being said, humor, it definitely has a place in Dungeons and Dragons, and in my opinion, historically, sometimes the most memorable character moments are the funny ones, or at least ones that have beats of humor in them. As somebody myself who loves to laugh, but is also a sucker for these character-driven story moments, I actually challenged myself to play a joke character in a long-running campaign. Currently, I'm playing as a character named Krazier Jr. Esquire III. He's a goblin artificer, and he is quite fun to play. And I'll sprinkle in a little bit of examples of how I applied some of these tips I'm going to give you on how to play a joke character throughout this video. But TLDR, he's an extremely cartoonish character in a setting and campaign with pretty serious tones and themes and an overall atmosphere. But that being said, he still fits in the world, and honestly, I'm having a blast pulling it off. So today, I want to give you some tips and tricks on how to do something similar, where you're playing a quote-unquote joke character, but actually engaging in a campaign in a way that isn't entirely disruptive or annoying to your fellow PCs and your Dungeon Master. So, building on what the Dungeon Dudes mentioned, I think the character itself has to take itself seriously. And that means, in my opinion, no quips. Okay, I hate quips, personally. I don't think quips are great when it comes to joke characters. I think joke characters should be funny. They should have shticks, but they should not have quips. Quips are what writers do in a Marvel movie when they don't have anything else to fill the space. Quips aren't what you should be looking to use to draw out laughs in Dungeons and Dragons. Really, if you have a bit that you want to run, maybe run it once, twice, 3 times, max, okay? These types of things, they don't really have a place in a long-form campaign, at least. But to build on the character taking itself seriously, within the confines of the world, the character's silliness has to make sense. So, for instance, my character, Krazier Jr. Esquire III, his name is like that because I've developed, alongside my Dungeon Master, a goblin society that is kind of similar to an anarcho-fascist New York. And on top of that, yes, the character thinks he's Bane's champion, and he talks to his right hand because he thinks Bane is actually talking to him. So is he a little bit schizophrenic? Maybe, or maybe that's actually Bane. But that being said, these things make sense to the character, and they will make sense to the characters around him when they learn more about where he's from and what his culture is like. And so a lot of the quirks about his nature and his personality can be drawn down to cultural differences or personality characteristic differences, which can really make the character a lot more grounded within the confines of the world that's being created. My second tip is that I think the most humorous moments in Dungeons and Dragons are actually situational. They aren't planned ahead of time. And that's why, again, quips aren't the best thing. They sort of take away from the group storytelling that you do in Dungeons and Dragons. So, for instance, Krasir has in the past expressed that, even though he's a goblin and he's 3 feet tall, he has a thing for really tall women. And that was lore that was not written in his backstory. It was a vagueness in his backstory. There was nothing at all that had to do with his sexuality or his romantic interests. And that's something that the other players at the table were asking me at the time. And I improvised and I came up with something that I thought made sense for the character, but I have to keep it consistent now. And that's tip number 2, is that once you have something that is funny or is a personality characteristic of the character, you have to keep it consistent. Joke characters, if they are supposed to take themselves seriously, that means that they have to be both internally and externally consistent when it comes to their personality, how they're written, etc. Tip number 3, and what I think is the most important tip, is that joke characters aren't the main characters. And that's something that is really hard for some players to recognize sometimes. Joke characters are actually meant to help prop up and give other characters a moment to shine. Yes, they, are humorous. So maybe sometimes the spotlight comes to them. But the idea behind a joke character, or I think the optimal way to play a joke character is to play them as a facilitator. They take the spotlight and then they give it to somebody else. And the idea is that you can help other players really bring out their character's personality through the whimsical nature of your joke character. And that can be a little bit tough to figure out how to do. I mean, how do you spotlight somebody else? Well, in my experience, what I found is that whenever somebody asks Krasir a question, because Krasir's a yapper, he'll talk a lot, Krasir always asks them back the same thing. There's never a moment in time where he doesn't ask another character the same question or challenges the character on why they're asking that question. And it basically follows the traditional improv yes and style storytelling. And it's very useful for helping facilitate an entire group, especially a group that might have some people who are less willing to get into their backstory or who are more shy and stuff like that. So going back to what the Dungeon Dude said, and please check out their video. It's super well done. And I think it's fairly well thought out, and their examples are excellent, especially examples about Sam Riegel's characters. Sam is a personal hero of mine. But like they said, I think the most important thing when doing a joke character is to work with your DM to make it work. And if they say no joke characters, obviously don't do it. But if they say yes, well, then make sure that they give the go-ahead for the things that you're going to be doing. I am also personally of the opinion that it's important to give your DM work. And what I mean by this is something that actually Brendan Lee Mulligan mentioned recently in an interview about Critical Role Campaign 4, where he said that essentially sometimes when you give players a world where there's some vagueness involved, well, the players will do will create stories and stuff like that, and essentially act like a Midwestern cowboy and shoot at DM's feet and say, "Dance, monkey, dance." And I am a very big proponent of that style of character writing, where you give your DM a challenge on how to fit the things that you want inside the world. That's why I asked my DM if I could help him by writing the setting of the Goblin Mountain where my character comes from. But on the other hand, I also intentionally left some of my story vague so that my DM could fill in the blanks. Who is the person that he is talking to through his hand? These are things that are questions that my character has, that I have, and that will only be answered by my dungeon master. And I mean, it's their world. They should have a little bit of a say in how things are run when it comes to your character and how they fit within it. All in all, I think it's more fun and you can get more people in on the joke when you give your DM some agency as to how to make this joke character work within their own world. So thank you for watching. If you thought this was thought-provoking at all, or you have disagreements, or you agree, let me know in the comments below. And feel free to send a subscription and become a fellow adventure capitalist unlimitedly. See ya.